I want to talk about Turning Red. Full disclosure. First, there will be spoilers for both Turning Red and Encanto. Second, I'm just going to be upfront with everybody. I'm not Asian. I don't plan on talking about any of the cultural parts, but if what I say doesn't gel with any cultural aspects, then my bad. I'm not trying to be an asshole, I'm just an idiot. So if I screw up somewhere, then feel free to roast me.
If anyone is interested in hearing from the perspective of somebody who is Asian, then I would recommend checking out Just Jujube's video about Turning Red, We Need to Talk. I will put a link in the description for it.
Third, I'm going to be talking about womanly stuff and family drama. So if that isn't your thing, then feel free to click on a different video to the right of your screen. Seriously, I will not be offended. Fourth, I have dealt with family drama in my adolescence. Will I go into it? Hell no, but please be aware that I am not somebody on the outside who is looking in. I am not making a video just for clout or whatever. Like, I've actually gone through stuff in my adolescence, and so I know how it feels, and it sucks. Number 5. I'm not a professional, nor have I studied a lot of psychology. So what I say is very opinionated. Do not take what I say as a fact. I am basing this off of what I've experienced in real life during my adolescence. Got it? Alright, let's dive in. What did I like? Well, I like that they actually talked about periods. Let me explain. For some reason, in our society, it seems like periods are something that is taboo and kind of shameful in a weird way. Alright, story time. When I was in high school about 10 odd years ago, there was a female classmate who mentioned that they were embarrassed getting pads and tampons at the store. Well, I'm sitting there like, woman, you're on your period. Hell yeah! Celebrate that you got your period because you don't got dealing with babies and stuff. I don't know if the attitude among teenagers have changed since 10 years ago, but that's what I've dealt with. So I did like that the movie actually mentioned period stuff and didn't dance around the topic. The mother gave May some pads so that blood doesn't get everywhere. To help with the cramping, she also gave May some ibuprofen and tea, which is all stuff that women actually use on their periods because cramps suck. They hurt a lot, so taking pain medicine and drinking tea is normal. The only thing that the mother didn't mention was using hydrogen peroxide to get blood stains out of the underwear. So if there's any guy watching this, if you're ever noticed and wondered why there's always a big brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide in every woman's bathroom, that is why. Periods happen every month and can last from 4 to 7 days. So why are periods so taboo and not talked about in our society and when it's something that is so common? I don't know. But I do think that it is something that everyone, even males, should at least be aware of. I don't expect people to be experts on it, but at the very least know that it exists. What did I not like about the movie? This is gonna be a lot, so grab a drink, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and let's dive into it. I didn't like the relationship between May and her mother and the whole family dynamic. At the beginning of the movie, the mother, Ming, is very controlling and demanding of May. When May starts turning into a red panda, May starts to become more rebellious while her mother is still being controlling and demanding. Later on, the grandmother and the other aunts are introduced, and throughout the movie you learn that Ming was rebellious against the grandma, kind of like how May is being rebellious against her. To me, it felt kind of predictable, because I feel like I've seen it in other media where you learn that the controlling parent used to be carefree and rebellious, just like how the child is acting now. At the end of the movie, it didn't feel like the mother really changed. It's implied that the mother changed, but I never saw a complete 180 shift in her character compared to the beginning of the movie. It's not like how in Finding Nemo, where you see Marlin start off as a worried and tense parent, then go on a life-discovering journey where by the end of the movie, you see him become a more relaxed and trusting parent for Nemo. Here's what I thought would have worked better within the context of the story. How the mother started off was good. Like how I mentioned before, she is controlling and demanding of May, which allows room for character development. When the grandmother character was introduced, that's when I thought that May's mother should have started having a shift in her character. I think what I wanted to see was best described in the show God, the Devil, and Bob in the episode Bob's Father. I'm not getting religious here. This was an animated show that aired on NBC and Adult Swim in the early 2000s and 2010. And overall, it was a pretty good show. So the main plot of the episode is that Bob's father is on his deathbed. So Bob is going to say his last words to him, but because his dad riles him up, he doesn't get the chance to properly tell his dad goodbye. Bob goes to hell so he can finally say bye to his dad, but then discovers that he isn't there. Bob then has a breakdown where he ends up at a bar and talks to God. Bob is complaining to God that his dad was a terrible father, but then God tells Bob to imagine that there's this punch passed on from parent to child, all the way from the beginning of time to now. The punch will be passed on, but the trick is to pass on a softer punch, and that Bob's dad passed on a softer punch. What that means is that parents are not going to be perfect. There are going to be times where the parent screws up, but they are trying, which is the point. From what I've experienced in real life is that if a parent has gone through something shitty in their childhood, then they will try and make sure that their kids don't have to deal with the same crap that they dealt with. Then once the kids grow up and they become parents, then they can reflect on their own childhood and try and make sure that their kids don't have to deal with any of the rough stuff that they went through. Ideally, each generation will learn from the mistakes from the previous generation and provide a better experience for the next generation. When the grandmother character is introduced, I think that's when Ming should have started to reflect on her own childhood and relationship with her own mother. She should have started thinking, I hated how my mother treated me. Am I acting the same way towards Mei? The dad could have been the voice of reason and help remind Ming of how she was when they were kids and how her mother treated her back then. Later on, when Mei's mother finds all that stuff under Mei's bed and sees that Mei's grades have been slipping, then that should have been a wake-up call that something is very wrong here. This could have been an opportunity for the mother and Mei to sit down and have an honest conversation. Mei could have told her that she doesn't like that she is constantly being controlled and having these very high expectations set on her. Mei's mother could have reflected and tried to understand that when she was Mei's age, she felt a similar way with her mother. With Mei's mother not wanting her to go through the same drama that she experienced, she gives Mei the remaining money for the concert tickets and lets Mei decide if she wants to go to that Four Town concert or do the ceremony. I looked it up. A blood moon happens twice a year, and Mei has shown that she can control the panda. They could have just been like, you know what, I trust you. Everyone knows that you're a panda at this point. You can control the panda. We'll do this the next blood moon. Go have a good time. Where's the big baddie of this movie? It's the grandma. When the grandma comes into the movie, she is condescending and wants to be in control of everything, despite Ming being an independent adult with her own family. The grandma is the one that scared Mei into not wanting to transform into a panda. So, alternate story, Ming gives Mei the choice of going to the Four Town concert. Mei decides that instead of doing the ceremony, she goes to the concert. Then the grandma flips out and turns into a panda because she wants to be in control and have Mei do the ceremony. The end of the movie could have been Ming finally standing up to the grandmother and explaining that it is her life. She has no say in how Mei is to be raised, and that the grandmother needs to back off or else she will no longer be able to see her and Mei, while Mei is pleading with her grandmother to stop because she doesn't want her to be cut out of her life. Because here's the thing, a grandparent needs the child more than the child needs the grandparent. I don't mean that a grandparent needs to be financially or physically supported. What I mean is that if a child cuts a grandparent out of their life, then that has a smaller impact on the child's life compared to the grandparent's life. The grandparents are at the point in their life where it's hard for them to start over with a new family. When the kids become independent adults and that relationship becomes strained, then love isn't always a given. Neither party should be taken advantage of. If the grandparent wants to be a part of the child's life and see their grandkids, then there needs to be a balance of power in order to have a healthy relationship. And that's something that this movie could have explored, is the power dynamics between parents and children. When a child is very young in primary or elementary school, the parents have all of the power over the kids because the kids are still very dependent. But as kids start getting older, they become teenagers, they get jobs, they have their own money, they have more responsibility, and they have more freedom, that power dynamic starts to slowly narrow. Then once the kid is an independent adult, that power dynamic becomes even. The parent can no longer tell their child what to do anymore. If their child wants to eat ice cream for breakfast and get trash before noon, then they can do that. The relationship changes from a parent-child to more of a friendship or colleague type of relationship. And I know what you're thinking. Isn't this like Encanto with the grandmother being the main antagonist? Yes, because that's what happens in real life. Trauma has to originate from somewhere, and within the context of this movie, it's coming from the grandmother's generation. When comparing to how trauma was done in Turning Red and Encanto, I thought Encanto did it way better. The abuela is controlling and manipulative, but it's done in a very subtle way where on the first watch it's not immediately noticeable. Then when Maribel finally snaps and calls out her abuela, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's a combination of how the abuela has treated both Maribel and the rest of the family throughout the movie, with Maribel finally understanding that this isn't a healthy relationship and that the abuela is the one who is being toxic. I think what makes it work is that the abuela didn't notice her toxic behavior until Maribel finally calls her out on it, which is something that I've seen in real life. It happens. Once the abuela is called out, she then reflects and takes responsibility for her toxic behavior. The abuela makes an effort to fix her toxic behavior and tries to amend the family. In Encanto's context, it's the abuela who has to make things right. But in Turning Red, it looked like it was May who had to try and make things right when it should have been the grandma, because she was the figure where the original toxicity came from. There's a reason why people behave the way that they do. Most people don't wake up and go, guess I'll be evil. There's always some sort of context that shapes a person, and having that context helps create an understanding and gives a better picture as to who that person is. Encanto provided context as to why the abuela acts the way that she does. In Finding Nemo, within the first 3 minutes, we know why Marlin is a tense, overprotective parent. In Turning Red, we don't get that. It's not made clear to the general audience why this grandmother is the way that she is. We had a tiny bit of context as to why the mother acted the way that she did, but it was very surface level and didn't provide a lot of clarity. To me, May was a victim. It was not her responsibility to try and make amends with the family. This was something that the grandmother and the mother needed to work out. When someone is toxic, then you can blow up. You can yell at them. You can have that big fight, but afterwards, you can't do anything. The only thing that you can do is move on with your life. If you feel like you need space or if you need to cut that toxic person out of your life, then do what you need to do. If that toxic person wants to be allowed back into your life, then they need to fix themselves. No one is responsible for a toxic person's behavior. And if anyone wants to fight me about this, then I will throw hands in an HEB parking lot. That's a joke. I'm not being serious. It was not May's responsibility to fix any generational trauma. Overall, I was more disappointed in this movie because Pixar created Finding Nemo that had a lesson for overprotective parents, but Turning Red almost 20 years later, oh my god, it was almost 20 years later, what the hell happened? Didn't end up with an impactful lesson for today's parents. I thought a Goofy movie made in 1995 did a better job at showing dynamic relationships between a parent and a teenager. It also had a more consistent narrative now that I think about it. That's my view of everything. I know that my life experience isn't the default that everyone has experienced, so if you have a different view and you want to share, then feel free to comment. Like, this isn't me trying to get clout on YouTube. I mean this sincerely. Also, I would advise not to subscribe because I make funny little videos. I like to keep things light, so making long video essays like these aren't really my thing. So this is just a one-time occurrence. Please do not expect any more. This is the end of the script. Hope everyone has a good day, good evening, good night.